Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 117 of the In a Nutshell podcast. I'm your host, Sean Vowells. I've got Joe Meade with me, too, and today is our Week 10 preview for Big Ten football. Joe, we have got what the TV executives thought would have been one of the games of the year leading us off on Big Noon Kickoff here. Unfortunately for them, it has not broke that way. It's Penn State going on the road to face the number one team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State more than 20-point favorites here at 20.5. What are you looking forward to in this one?
Not much, to be honest with you, Sean. I think the way Penn State offense operates, it's going to heavily be on Katron Allen. I would be shocked if Matt Patricia and the D line were not ready to, if need be, even if they can't do it on their own, if they're not ready to deploy extra units to contain the run. I think Nick Singleton, this is a game he has to do something in. I just don't think the track record has been particularly good this year, even after a bye. Ethan Gruckmeyer's going to have to make some plays in this game for Penn State to keep it competitive. I think he's capable. He is a Columbus kid. I think this game does mean a lot to him, but the problem is, I just think this Jim Knowles defense, especially with Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, very likely with a bone to pick with Jim Knowles, the way he exited that program. For reference, he wasn't invited to the Natty parade after talking to Penn State. I really do think that Julian Sayin, Bo Jackson, and Cardell Tate and Jeremiah Smith are going to tear this defense apart. I think the defense has taken a huge step back. I told you the reasons on previous casts. Just to recap, I think that Koldenicky offense is so weird. Knowles had to dumb down the defense because it's very complicated. And I think you're seeing a dumbed down defense. That's what you've seen the last four games on their four-game skid. And to think they'll fix everything during a bye week just because Jim Knowles used to coach at Ohio State, I think would be naive. I have this game, Sean. I had to give a score prediction. I have Ohio State winning 38-13. I think they cover that spread, and I think they continue to roll into their very extremely probable top four seed in the college football playoff.
There's blood in the water here. Penn State um, could easily have their will broken here through this stretch. They played a pretty solid game at Kinnick against Iowa. They just came up short. Obviously, they're going to need way better effort than that to even compete in this game. But um, I still think there might be a surprise in Penn State this year. Hopefully, it doesn't come against my team in 2 weeks. But yeah, this is an Ohio State game where they're looking to continue to be efficient on offense. I don't know if Penn State can keep them under 30, and I think it'd be hard to expect Penn State to get to 20, being that nobody has done that yet against Ohio State. So I'm going to go Ohio State 35, Penn State 9. All right, noon on NBC. Joe, we've got Rutgers going out to Champaign to play the Fighting Illini. Illinois minus 11.5 as of now, coming off of another bad loss to a good team. Illinois looking for a bounce back here.
Yeah, this is an interesting line to me. We got a 10.5, 11.5, depending on what book you're looking at. I really think Athan Kaliakmanis can make this game very, very interesting. I think the way he's passed the ball all year has been very encouraging for the Scarlet Knights. I also do think their defense is slowly coming along. I also thought Illinois' defense was slowly coming along, and then they got 40 bombed by Washington and really showed no life all day. I think between Antoine Raymond, the running back, and KJ Duff, the wide receiver. I think Rutgers is going to have to really ride those guys in this one. I think this might be a first to 30 wins, which I thought in a Bielema Shiano matchup I would never say. I think for reference, the over-under is 62.5, so they're kind of thinking what I am, first one to 30 wins. I'm going to go kind of away from the mainstream here. I think Rutgers pulls off a huge upset here, Sean, at least against Vegas. I think Luke Altmaier has been a fine quarterback. I don't love the way he's protected the ball. I do think with the talent that left Illinois last year on offense, that he's had to make more plays by himself, and it's forced him into some mistakes. And I think Shiano hasn't lost his defensive chops, and I think he'll try to exploit that. Give me the Scarlet Knights to win this one, Sean, 31-28. I think they pull off a huge upset. I think they take a massive step toward bowl eligibility with Maryland and Penn State still on their schedule.
This, Joe, seems like the type of formula that could just get Illinois. Like Rutgers gets out to a 14-0 lead and it's a shootout, and Illinois just can't get that stop. I do think it'll be pretty high scoring. I think the over will hit. I'm going to go Illinois 33, Rutgers 30. I think it's another game winning field goal for the Illini in a game where they don't look like they're going to win the entire time, but after tying it, they get a huge stop and then they kick a game winning field goal. But yeah, this is Rutgers might smell blood in the water here. It's a defense that's given up a lot of points. Rutgers has shown the ability to get a lot of points, get a lot of yards, sustain drives. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of points here. Momentum's probably going to swing back and forth a few times, but I just think I don't see Bielema as like losing control of the season here with a
No,
game that really they
fair.
shouldn't lose. All right, let's go to 3:30. Joe, number 2, Indiana goes on the road to play Mike Loxley, and 4-3 Maryland. Indiana 21.5 point favorites here on the road. Maryland had a hot start early. They've cooled off with a couple of losses to in games that they should have won, but it's Indiana coming in 3:30 crowd on CBS. But what are you expecting here?
Yeah, 3:30 crowd on CBS. Yeah, the TV, not necessarily at the game. I think this will be a poorly attended game. I think Maryland might be able to score a little on Indiana to keep this somewhat competitive through the first half. The problem is I don't think they can keep up with Mendoza and this Indiana offense. Roman Hemby, the ex Maryland running back, as well as Elijah Surratt. I just think there's too many weapons for Maryland's defense to worry about. I think they've been good in spurts in games. I just don't think against this Indiana offense, who's pretty clinical in their approach. I just don't see like Indiana to me is such a pro football team in the sense that even like after that pick six, for example, they just came right back out and kept going. To me, that's why Indiana's going to win this game. I actually won't pick them to cover the 21.5. I think they win a 41-21 type game. I think Maryland does have some plays drawn up. I don't think it's a criticism of Indiana's defense. I think Maryland comes out hot, scores 14 in the first half. Might be only trailing 20-14, but then I think Indiana's just going to kind of throw one punch and the come brakes are going to come off for the Terrapins. So 41-21, Indiana takes this one.
I think if Indiana is anywhere near where they've been all year offensively, they're going to get to 40 plus here. Um, they've only turned over the ball a few times, and that interception from Mendoza last week was frankly pretty unlucky. He hit his own lineman, it went up in the air, and the another lineman bobbled it right to the defender. But yeah, I think Indiana knows that Maryland cannot keep up with them unless something crazy happens. But if I think Indiana, I want this game to be over by halftime. Break the crowd, make the few who are there go home, and then you can get Alberto Mendoza in there in the fourth quarter like they've done a couple times. But I'm going to go Indiana 45, Maryland 21. All right, Joe, we've got another 3:30 game here on the Big Ten Network. We've got Michigan State making the trip north and west to Minnesota. Golden Gophers are 5-3, looking to get bowl eligibility, while the Spartans are still looking for their first Big Ten win. Minnesota just a field goal and a half-point favorites here. Interesting spread.
Yeah, I think this will be another really competitive game, kind of like a sicko game like Rutgers, Illinois. I think Joe Rossi brought a lot of juice to that defense. I do think against his former team that he used to coordinate for in PJ Fleck, he will also be down on the field. I think Michigan State's defense has some positive momentum. I really hope for their sake their spirit didn't break after that Michigan loss where Michigan kind of just ran down their throat in the second half and broke their will there at the end. I think this is a game. Which quarterback's going to bounce back first, Aiden Childs or Drake Lindsey? Uh, I think both of them have been really good this year at times, particularly at the beginning of the year for Aiden Childs and Lindsey kind of more sporadically. And they've both been really bad. I think the X factor here is going to be Darius Taylor and this Minnesota run game. Uh, can they can they make themselves the biggest factor and allow Drake Lindsey to operate with less pressure? I think against Iowa, that certainly did not happen. But I also think Michigan State's defense is a huge step back compared to that. And being at home, I do really think this game could go either way. I think this could also be a game. Alessio Milivojevic for Michigan State comes in. I really hope I didn't butcher that.
No, I think that
Uh,
was right.
that's Slovakian or Serbian last name. It's not great pronunciation by me, but I think he brings something a little different. I also think it's unfair to say he's definitively better than Childs
He's not.
based on the principle that he's got a garbage time and also scored. I don't think that's necessarily a great criteria that someone's better than a starting QB. I think this is a game Childs is going to have to use his legs in, Sean. Michigan took that away right away when they hit him on that fumble. I think MSU and Brian Liggard got away from that, and I don't think they should necessarily do that in this game because I think Minnesota's defense has struggled at times versus versatile offenses, and Michigan State can make themselves one. So the three keys: who establishes the run, what quarterback bounces back, and can Childs use his legs? I'm actually going to go with the Spartans here, Sean. I do think in the past they've lost to Michigan, and in 2022 they then upset Illinois the next week with a limited roster. So give me the Spartans to win this game, 24-23.
Wow. I'm going to go with the Golden Gophers, Joe. Just all those questions you answered. I think Lindsey does bounce back. I think Darius Taylor is a better running back than anything Michigan State has. And Minnesota's defense is going to look for a bounce back. We've seen it with Michigan's defense um, after getting just ripped apart by USC. They put up a great performance against Washington. You then saw it with Washington after a bad offensive performance. They turned it up the next week against Illinois. Good football teams bounce back from when bad performances that are not them. Michigan State has had a couple chances to bounce back, and they haven't. That might just be who they are. So I'm going to go Minnesota 31, Michigan State 17. All right, also on the Big Ten Network, Joe, we've got Purdue going to your Michigan Wolverines at the Big House at 7 o'clock Eastern. Purdue still looking for their first Big Ten win. Michigan looking to take one step closer towards the Ohio State game. Michigan minus 20.5 right now. Thoughts going into this one?
I think this is a game Michigan's going to try to air it out more with Bryce Underwood, given the success Anthony Madison. A lot of quarterbacks around the country have had against this Purdue secondary. I do think Purdue in this game, why they're dangerous to the next teams they're playing, they really have nothing to lose. I think they've been so close in a lot of games that they're frankly not afraid of anyone at this stage. I think the trick plays they run, I think Devin Mockabee is one of the better underrated running backs in all of college football. So I look at this game and think, Sean, that it should be a blowout, but I do think Purdue sticks around for a bit. I think they're probably within, two scores, like 10 at halftime. Like it might be a 20-10 game at halftime, and then Michigan slowly grounds and pounds with some passing for Underwood in the second half to seal this thing. I think Michigan wins this game 37-17. I don't think they cover that 20.5. I think Purdue's offense does score in this game. I really like, we've talked about plenty of podcasts. I really like the progress they've made on the field. I know it hasn't necessarily led to this huge win jump, but they've technically doubled their wins from last year, so that is something. But I like the way they play. I still think they could have something brewing into next year if they develop the younger talent, but this is not the game where it's probably going to be on display.
I just don't know if, I don't know if Michigan has to take a lot of chances here. I don't, Purdue, I feel like has to do something. They have to get a turnover. They have to return a punt or something to get ahead of Michigan here, and then you can start to get the home crowd turning and all that. I just think Michigan needs to prove they need a definitive win here against a team that they're definitely better than. Obviously, the Washington win was a really impressive win against a pretty similar team, but Wisconsin hung around at the Big House. Just see if Underwood can tear apart this secondary. If Haynes is unable to go or is limited, you still have Jordan Marshall. You can still get him the ball a lot. This should not be in doubt in the third quarter. If Purdue keeps it within one possession at halftime, all right, that happens. But, as the third quarter goes on, I think this game needs to be over for Michigan to feel good about it. I'm going to go Michigan 28, Purdue 17. I just don't know if they have a first half effort good enough to put them away totally, but I think they will wear Purdue down in the third quarter with their efficient running game. And I'm going to say I think Bryce Underwood does hit a big pass for a touchdown here. That's going to be my prediction. All right, Joe, ending the night for the Big Ten on NBC is probably the best game of the weekend. Certainly means the most. Definitely a college football playoff elimination game. We've got USC going on the road to Lincoln to play Dylan Raiola and the Cornhuskers. Uh, Gateway game here might be a little bit of an understatement.
Yeah, it's a total elimination game. I don't like the word gateway in this sense. This is a straight up elimination game with teams. USC, if they went out, definitely a path. Do not really see one for Nebraska either way, but they can take a massive step here. They might, like, for example, double it from 15 to 40% if they do win this game, should they win out. Getting back to the football part of it, Sean, here's what's going to come down to. Can Dylan Raiola have the game, not of his life, but have one of the better games he's had in a Nebraska uniform? Can his offensive line give him ample time? And I really think Nebraska has to take the lead early in this one. I think we've seen USC throughout the year, Sean, especially what they did against Michigan. When this team has the lead, they're ruthless. They play pressure free on offense. Jada Baeva uh, is a very smooth operator of that Lincoln Riley offense. I think the receivers might cover up a lot of issues, but it doesn't really matter because those receivers are such plus players that whether they have issues or not, it's going to make the offense as a whole ridiculously good. I think this is a great matchup between the Nebraska secondary and USC receiving core. I do think I give the slight edge to USC's receiving core here, just because the amount of weapons they have, and also Maeva could take off on his legs. And I think he's a smart quarterback. He takes the easy intermittent passes, and he could also throw long and kind of arm punt it in a way. And I think that's why I wouldn't like freak out if he had two picks that Nebraska gets at their own 10-yard line. Uh, Here's the bottom line, Sean. Can Nebraska's offensive line give Dylan Raiola and those skill players enough time to make plays? I, I can't say they can, because this is a game Nebraska, and I know it's unfair to pin Scott Frost, Mike Riley on Matt Rule, but this is a game, even Rule's tenure at Nebraska, they have not won. The kind of, glass ceiling game. They couldn't do it against Michigan in a way. They couldn't do it against Minnesota. They repeatedly couldn't have done it the last 2 years. Um, I think USC does not cover the spread, but I do think their offense is going to be a little too much. I think their Lincoln Riley's going to exploit a few too many holes in Nebraska's defense, and I think Nebraska's O line is not going to be able to hold up throughout the game. Nebraska really has to get out to a two-score lead for me to feel they can win this game. With that said, Shad, give me the Trojans to win this game, 34-31. I think it's going to be a really tight game. I think Nebraska is going to score a lot. I just don't think they're going to finish drives, and I think Matt Rule might go to the well a few too many times to try to win this.
For me, Nebraska's got to not be one-dimensional offensively. Their offensive line is not built to be a pass-only offense, really. They've got to be able to run the ball. Teams have done that against USC, namely Notre Dame recently. They just destroyed them on the ground. So maybe if Nebraska can keep them on their heels a little bit with some uncertainty, maybe a trick play or two, I do think that has to happen for Nebraska to win this game. I think USC is going to put up at least 25. Nebraska's defense has not shown me enough to think that they'll keep them under 25. And I think, Raiola's going to have to ball out. We've said a few times he just doesn't have to be terrible in the last few games, and he kind of was, especially against Minnesota. So I don't know if that resurgence is coming from Dylan, and it's going to have to for them to win. But I think USC wins this 38-23. I just think that Nebraska is not able to get a stop or to keep up really with their offense. But that is all the games in Week 10. Joe will be back early next week to recap all of them. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.